Yeah, well, I always like connecting with users and going through user group sessions because I don't get to do that as often anymore as I used to. But I'm a mechanical engineer by background. Started as a ski lift engineer here in Salt Lake, mechanical engineer for ski lifts. So I started using SolidWorks back in uh, I'd say it was probably 1997, 1998, somewhere in there. Not really a developer by background, right? A mechanical engineer, but I think a lot of us, if you're an engineer as well, you do some code in school. And when I was in school, okay, the languages were a little different than they are now. So I'll put that out there. I learned by doing, really. So that's just a little bit background on me. The topic for today is the drawings API. This is going to be pretty basic on the drawings. Okay, we're going to go through how to create drawings from templates, how to fill out views, how to create a bill of materials, extracting information like the bill of materials, saving to Excel, and saving your drawing as a PDF. But a piece that I want to emphasize, especially if some of you are relatively new and tend to just pump everything into your main procedure, are some code organization best practices with modules and classes. Okay, now, those of you who are thinking, yeah, I got all this stuff, okay, kick back, relax, and enjoy the sultry sounds of my voice, I guess, or something like that. Um, so here's a couple things. Anytime you're building a macro, and I'm talking to those of you who are fairly new to this, spend some time planning. I mean, you do this, I'm sure, when you're creating a mechanical design. Do this when you're trying to create code for a project. This is the result I want. Okay, I've got one of the typical example models that come with SolidWorks. I want to create a drawing with a bill of materials and balloons on the drawing, and I mentioned a couple things, right? So in thinking about your project, I would strongly encourage you to prepare templates, folders, models so you can minimize code. I'm a big proponent of do whatever you can with the SolidWorks solution and with the SolidWorks tools, whether it's templates, whatever, to minimize the amount of code you have to write. So you'll see I'm using a predefined template with a predefined view just to simplify. And if you're sharing this macro with other people, it gives them the flexibility to adjust the template on their side, and they don't have to change any code to get different results. So I'm going to use a new drawing from a template with predefined views. I mentioned that. We're going to see how you populate a predefined view. How do you insert a BOM? And again, using that BOM template and the drawing template that's got an anchor, I want to make sure it's anchored in the bottom right corner. In this case, I'm going to do top level components only. I want my balloons added in a square layout. Okay. And then I'm going to save some stuff. I already mentioned this, but the key is plan this out, right? How do you want to save it and where do you want to save it? This will impact your code. I want the drawing in the same folder as the model, same name. When I export the BOM, I want it same folder, same name as the model, same thing with the PDF. So you start thinking about what you're going to do and you start finding places where you want to reuse some code. And that's where I'm going to emphasize creating a class. When I first wrote code, I would just pump everything into my main module and would occasionally make subroutines, but I really struggled understanding why classes and separate classes were valuable. I have a brother that's a developer. That's all he does. And he and I went back and forth on this a long time. And his opinion was, if you need it, you need it. If you don't, you don't. But as I got better at this, I started realizing how much more efficient it is and easier to reuse code when you start organizing your code. Okay. So I'm going to put some emphasis on that. Now, here's another choice that a lot of you have. Do I record it or do I write it from scratch? I would encourage you, if you're learning the API structure and learning how to use the API, recording is an awesome way to do that. You start learning the API calls. However, there are a lot of things recorded that are recording your user interactions that aren't ultimately what you need. There are a lot of selections that go on that just you don't really need to get objects by selecting them. There's a lot of noise in a recording that can be frustrating as well. So as you get more comfortable and confident, sometimes it's more efficient to write it rather than record it and then try to edit this mass of data. And I will just nod. I was going to try and do something with a little bit of AI generated code, but I will give a nod to the fact that use your favorite AI solution to generate code utilities and code modules for you, especially for common things. They may not be perfect all the time, but it's a fantastic way to get routines created quickly. So I'm going to write in this case, and I'm going to come back to that after I go through the process and give you the, here we are, and give you the whole project so you can download what I've got and use it yourself. So with that, right, I've got my model. I want to create a new drawing. So I'm going to start the macro from scratch here. I tend to be a keyboard shortcut guy, but I assume all of you know how to get to macros, tools, macros. I'm going to edit in this case because I made a little kind of scratch pad for myself. New, record, all that's there. You can put it in a tab, right? I'm assuming you probably already know that stuff, but there it is if you needed it. So I'm going to start with something that I've got just lightly organized. Okay. So I've got some notes in here for what I want to have happen during the code run. Basically what I explained to you, right? And I've already put in option explicit here in VBA. I'm going to throw this out as well. VBA is not my favorite. It's convenient, and I'll give you that because you don't have to install anything else. I personally, my go-to is Visual Studio, but I acknowledge that you have to match it to your SOLIDWORKS version. You have to make sure you're using the right Visual Studio version if you're doing macros. And that can be a little tedious if you're trying to do that. But there is good documentation out there if you're trying to make sure you want to use Visual Studio, because in my opinion, it's a much better development environment. Then you have the option for more modern language structures, whether it's C# or .NET. I mean, you can use Visual Code, but then connecting to an application gets a little more complicated. There are lots of options. I'm going rookie style here with VBA. No offense to anyone by calling it rookie style. But a lot of the principles still apply. So the code structure, all of that's still the same. So I'm going to give you that little spiel. If you're starting from scratch and really want to have a more powerful, capable tool, learn how to use Visual Studio to make your macros and make your utilities. But if you're just needing quick tools built here and there, VBA is still a strong option. I've already got the code in here that connects to the SOLIDWORKS application and connects to the active document. So I'm not going to hit a lot of content around or a lot of information about that. So I'm going to dive straight into the steps that I need, right? And that's creating this new drawing. And I know I mentioned I'm going to deal with classes, but let's just assume we're just pumping stuff into the main procedure here, and then we'll reorganize. Okay. Now, I hope all of you are aware you have an excellent resource in the SOLIDWORKS API help site. When you go to the help menu in SOLIDWORKS, this is where it takes you. They've reorganized it so it's a little easier to navigate, but it still takes a little practice. But generally speaking, if you do a Google search, you're going to get the SOLIDWORKS API help documentation often in that process. And just to let you know, I'm using SOLIDWORKS 2026. I'm using what you probably all know is the 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS version. It doesn't matter which version of SOLIDWORKS you're using. This process is still the same. Okay. So some of this, I just know what the API calls are, right? From the SOLIDWORKS application, you can create, if I just type .new, right? IntelliSense helps me out with with some options, new assembly, new document, new drawing. There are a lot of ways you can tackle making a new document inside of SOLIDWORKS. I'm going to use the new document method because this one is pretty straightforward. All you need is a template, and then it's got options for paper size, but you only need those if you're creating from a drawing template that doesn't already have size preset. So in this case, I'm just going to assume I've got a template path variable. I don't yet, but I don't need any paper size information. So that's just going to be 0. Okay. Now, I've got to get a couple things ready. So, okay, I can create a new document. It's going to return whatever the document is. Okay. So I'm going to get a couple declares in here, and we've got some errors. Yep. So I'm going to declare, let's call it a drawing as it's going to be a drawing document type. And I need to make a template path variable, right? Make sure it's the same. In fact, I'm going to make this constant so I can set it right now. All right, so I'm just going to grab the path to my, there we go. I've got a drawing template here that I want to use, right? It's a full drawing template, so everything's preset. And in fact, I have a predefined view in there, and I'm going to use the Windows shortcut to copy the path to that file. That makes it pretty fast and easy. So then I can just paste that in. So I know I've got a template path, and I'm going to then set my drawing, my new drawing object to that new document. Pretty easy, right? I mean, I'm declaring the drawing, I'm declaring a path to the template. There it is. And telling SOLIDWORKS, make a new document. If I put in a part template, it would make a part. If I put in an assembly template, it would make an assembly. Okay. And just to validate that, let's just switch back so I can see SOLIDWORKS in here as well. Sorry, I'm going to be popping back and forth a little bit. Let's just make sure everything's working. So I can run that, hit F5 on the keyboard to run it, or just hit the run button. But okay, made the drawing. There's my predefined view. So all my settings are there. My bill of materials anchor is already set in the template, so I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All right. Step 1 done here. Okay. I know I'm going to rattle through some of this pretty quick, but then if I want to insert a model into predefined views, how do we do that? Right. Well, it's from the drawing document, and I'm just going to make sure I'm And I tend to use IntelliSense quite a bit. Just as you get more comfortable with the API, you start remembering some of the calls. I honestly had to look at my notes just to double check. But I fully acknowledge, oftentimes you have to go back and forth to the API help as you're learning to find the method that you're trying to do. But in this case, it's insert model in predefined view.
And it is kind of hard to keep track of all the methods of the API. It's impossible.
It is. It's massive.
It's massive. So
yeah. So most of the time in preparing for this, I was doing a lot of searching through the API help to make sure I was getting the right one. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, but I don't remember all these. Okay. Now, this method requires the model name. What's the path to the file that you're going to put into this predefined view? Now, I will acknowledge the model has to be open in SOLIDWORKS. It doesn't tell you that right here, right, in the quick IntelliSense, but I'm assuming it's open already because I'm starting from an open model. If you're going to do this in batch, then you've got to consider opening the model first before you do this operation. So the model name, I've got to have the path. Well, I'm going to come back up in my code a little bit because I've got the model up here, and I'm going to say, create a variable for model path as string. And that's going to be that model.getPathName. Okay, that's one that you should get to know because you'll need that all the time. And just for simplicity, I'm just going to say call, and there's my model path.
And if I may interject here,
Please.
the method get path name will return the complete file path to the
Yeah.
model. But you have
Yeah.
to be extra careful. The model needs to be saved. So if it's a new model, you have to save it. Otherwise, get path will return an empty string.
Great point. Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
will cause that method to fail.
Yep. You can have a model. And if it hasn't been saved, get path name returns nothing. Or I can't remember if it's an empty string or nothing. One of the two. But
I think it's
you won't get a path. So I'll mention a little bit of error trapping and error handling in here, but that's not going to be the focus of this session. That's probably worth a whole session. Is like, how do you deal with error handling so that if you're going to batch process something,
Absolutely.
it runs smooth without problems and doesn't get stuck. Okay, but as I start doing more of this, like as I start stepping into BOM, okay, I'm starting to have to reuse things over and over again. I'm going to start restructuring this. I think, you know what? I'm going to pull this into its own class so that once I've created the drawing, I can just call this class and it knows about the drawing and it knows about other things. So I don't have to have all of that mess here in my main module. So over in my tree, let's just say for my macro, I'm going to insert a class module. Okay, give that a name, and I'm going to call this my drawing maker class. Now, with a class, you're starting to, if you haven't dealt with classes much, you're dealing with things much like SOLIDWORKS classes, right? So you have to declare them then before you can use them. So let's take some of this. I'm going to take first my new drawing code, go into my class, and I'm still going to do some things like option explicit so that I make sure I'm declaring everything and don't run into problems there. And let's say, let's make this a public function, create drawing. I'm going to, when I first create a lot of functions, I tend to just make them Boolean, true or false. And then I figure out if I need to change the type that's returning later. Let's put all this in here. Now, because this is a constant, I'm going to pull this up as a global declaration inside of the class. And it's going to help me because I'm going to have some other things here too. I'm going to need a table template for my bill of materials. I want all that up top. So if I do want to make adjustments, it's just easy to find. It's just up at the top, just more for convenience. But now it's inside the class. So it's kind of protected. I can't get to the template path from the module and mess up my template path from outside. So that's one of the things that starts to help is you can protect things. Okay, so we've got that created. How about another public function we'll call it set drawing views. And you remember from the call, I need the path of the model. So I'm going to put that in here. Public phone. Did I misspell this? Yes, I did.
Yep.
Okay. And then I'll go pull this code here. I'm just going to cut that because I don't want to duplicate it. Okay. Have the same variable model path. Now you may be thinking, hey, this starts to look more complicated. You're making more code. Why are you doing this? Well, let me show you what I'm doing here. Now, I don't need this. I do need my class declared. I'm going to do that just above here. Let's call this DM for drawing maker. So I've got my new class here called drawing maker. So I'm declaring it as a new drawing maker. That means it's going to create an instance of drawing maker with this variable DM as soon as the first action takes place in there. And I've got two public functions that I've created, create drawing and set drawing views. Okay, so now I just use my create drawing. There's nothing sent here. but this returns a Boolean. So I'm going to declare just result, res, Boolean, and say result. Oops. Okay, so now I could do some error checking. Let's just say if not result, then what do I do if it didn't create the drawing? Well, this is probably the best place to trap this, right? I'm just going to do something really quick. Just a message box. Failed to create the drawing. And then I'm just going to end. Just as a really quick, hey, if it doesn't create the drawing, I need to stop because nothing else is going to work at this point, right? So just a quick example of how you can use that return while you're going. Now here, I can use my DM and set the drawing views. Now here's where I need that model path, right? So I'm passing it in from what I have above. I didn't need anything for create drawing. I didn't need any arguments there. And I could say, this is Boolean again, so mistyped there. So I could check that result as well. Did it set the drawing views? Well, in my code, I'm not returning anything when I insert the model views. So it's always just going to be false. I think that's the default for a Boolean. But if I want to make sure I do trap something, I could verify what does insert model in predefined views, what does this return? One way to do that is check the definition right within, oh, well, oftentimes that works. Let's go back to SOLIDWORKS API help. And there it is. Okay. So this returns, the value that it returns is a Boolean. It's true or false. Okay, I can see in the structure here what it's returning. Okay, so there's maybe an easy way to get, there we are. To get this, I'm going to say set drawing views equals. So now my function is returning true or false. So now I do have a real return. Now I know it is returning. This is one thing that between VBA and VB.NET and C# that kind of drives me crazy. You have to set the function name equal to the result. Kind of weird, but that's okay. There's no return in VBA if you're used to that kind of syntax. This is how you return a value. Okay, so I'm starting to get this to work. Now it's a little simpler. The benefit here as well is you can start testing some things independently, and I'll hit that in a few minutes. Okay, well, let's just do a quick verification. We'll just run the whole thing and see if I've got any problems. Also, I could, from the debug menu, I can compile and make sure I'm declaring everything. Okay, well, there's something that's not declared. The SOLIDWORKS application. Yeah, I got moving quick and forgot. I've got to pass in the SOLIDWORKS application. It doesn't exist inside of this class. So I forgot that. That's why I wasn't getting, well, anyway, let's take care of that. So let's pass that in as the SOLIDWORKS instance. So now I got to go back to my method where I'm calling it and pass in SOLIDWORKS application. There we go. Let's try debugging again. Variable not defined. Okay. Okay. So now what do we do? Do we pass it in? Like, do we get it? Like here, when I create the drawing, I could return it and capture it here, and then I could pass it in again. But I would suggest that starts to get noisy in your code, and you're handing off something that doesn't belong here in the code.
I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because we just got it here and it's within the class. So in the class, we're talking about one drawing. And if you're batch processing, every time this class is instantiated, you're talking about a specific single drawing. So why not just pull this drawing declaration that's inside of the create drawing, let's pull that out. And I'm just going to make it private. What that means is I can't access it from outside. But when the drawing is created, that global variable within the class is now available to additional functions. So if I use set drawings, now the assumption is I have to use set drawings after I use create drawing. I can't do them in the opposite order. It won't work. But now I can validate that. I can check where the definition of SW drawing is. And yep, it knows where it is. I should be clean here now if I debug. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Compile. Yep. Compile went without errors. Okay. So hopefully that starts to make sense why I'm putting this stuff into the class. And let's run it. I'm just going to use F5 on the keyboard just as a shortcut to run. Says it failed to create drawing. If I'm getting this back, create drawing, maybe I'm not returning that. Did I get sloppy again? I'm going too fast. On create drawing, let's go to the definition. Yeah, I didn't return anything. If SW draw, oh wait, before I do that, put a little result Boolean in here, and if SW draw nothing, then
create, yeah,
say res equals true. And then we need to return that, right? Oops.
Yes.
So create drawing equals the result. Whoa. The result. Now I've got a little trapping here to catch. Hey, was it successful? I wasn't catching that before.
Yeah, I think this will compile no problem now.
Yeah, so let's try that again. So it did create the drawing, but it didn't populate the view. So let's start that again from the top. What does it look like? Hey, there we go. Okay. So all the definition of the view, the display style, all of that, that's defined in the predefined view in the template. So again, you want to tweak that? Don't worry about writing it in your code. Change it in the template, right? Unless there's some reason you want to do something special to the view after the fact for one instance. But put as much of that into your template as you can. All right. So here's where I'm going to start using this class a little differently because it makes it easier to test. Especially consider if you had a big project and you're trying to do a lot of stuff in the drawing. Last thing you want to do is when you then get down to the point where you're adding balloons is have to run the entire macro to that point to test just adding balloons. So adding this as a class also gives me some flexibility to start creating some test code in my project. So I'm going to use a test code method here to insert my bill of materials because I've already got the drawing and it's got the view. Why do that over and over again? So I'm just going to make a new sub called test stuff. This is just garbage, so I don't care what it's called really. And I'm going to pull a lot of my initial code down here, and I've got to have the drawing maker class in that test code. Okay. Now, over in my drawing maker, let's make a function that adds the bill of materials. Let's call it create bomb. I don't know what I'll need yet, or if I'll need anything. Again, we'll just declare it as Boolean.
Probably need a constant for the template, correct?
Sorry, say that one more time.
We probably need a constant for the template, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we absolutely will, because this is going to need a template path. Yeah, so I'm just going to steal this from my existing code. Again, this just happens to be a bill of materials table I have on my system, right? And I've called it table template. And to create that bomb, I am just going to, just for sake of time, I'm going to copy and paste the code and we'll talk through it. Okay, so actually this one gets interesting. To create a bill of materials, when you're in the user interface, you have to pick a view. It's got to come from a view. Now I only have one view in the drawing, but I still actually have to take that action of getting the view. So I have to, in the call to create a bill of materials, it's called at the view level. So for a specific view, insert a bill of materials. In fact, I'm gonna walk this kind of backwards in this code. This is what it ultimately has to do. Okay. I haven't declared any of these variables. Oh, here's one I've got after, but from a view, this is a variable. I haven't declared that yet, so I got to make sure I get that done. I'm using insert BOM table 2. Now, here's another just commentary from my perspective. This is not the latest call. Okay, this one's obsolete. But what you'll tend to find is in SOLIDWORKS API, they maintain all of the old calls and they still work. What you'll find is the older calls tend to be more simplistic before the API evolved and before the user interface evolved and before the options in the interface evolved. But I kind of lean towards some of the simpler, obsolete calls when I don't need the detail of the newer current calls. I have yet to see SOLIDWORKS actually, when they say a call is obsolete, actually turn it off. Okay. Okay, some people might not like this idea, might not agree with this idea. They may say, hey, always use the latest. Fair. If you want to make sure you're always at the latest, cool. I'm a mechanical engineer, so sometimes I go for simpler is easier. So I'm using an older call. All right. So let me just let's talk through this method really quick. The first argument is whether to use the anchor point or not, true or false. I'm going to use it. These two would be a location if you didn't use the anchor, so I don't need it. I need to define an anchor type, and that's a predefined enumeration in the system. A bill of materials type, is it top level only? Is it parts only? So these are some of the switches in the user interface. I need a configuration to pull the BOM from. I need the name of that configuration, and I need a table template. Make sure I've got this defined correctly. If I hit definition, yep, it's going up to my defined constant. Okay, so I need a few other things, right? I need a view. I need these other types. Let's get a couple of these easy ones first. So, for example, the bill of materials type, I'm just declaring it as long and then setting it to one of the constants in the SOLIDWORKS constants library that sets the BOM to the bottom right. Okay. Now, the nice thing is I can change this, right? So if I back up to that part and just control space on the keyboard, I use that a lot to get to IntelliSense quickly. I can see quickly all of the different anchor types, top left, bottom right, bottom left. So it makes it easy to switch. If you record this, it'll just be a number in the interface. Then it's harder to know, okay, well, should I use 5? Should I use 2? So I like to go to the actual enumeration name just for clarity. And for the BOM type, I'm setting it to top level only. Okay, so we've got that. Now, we've got a bunch of these. We don't have a view. So I'm going to get how am I going to get a view? Now, this might be something I have to use more than once. I might have to do other things to the view. So I don't want to just get the view right here. Let's make a routine in here. And I'm just going to make it private. I don't think I need it outside of the class. Let's call it get first. I'm going to call this a little different. I just remembered that that's the name of the method in SOLIDWORKS. I don't want to confuse things. And I want this to return a view. Okay, so this won't be something I kind of collect and store. Could be. I'm just going to make it a function that can quickly and easily find the first view. Okay, so to do that, from the drawing, first of all, I'm going to declare a new variable as a view. I'm going to call it S. I'll tell you why. So set S equals from the drawing. the method is get first view. Now, if you haven't done this before, this does not get the view. This gets the sheet.
Sheet. That is good.
So that's why I declared that one as S. Now I'm going to say temp V as view. You don't have to do it. You could call it whatever you want and just run this sequence and you'll get the first view. But I might need the sheet for something else. So at least I've got the template there so I can hold on to the sheet if I need to. So to get the first view from the sheet, which is a view as well, there's a method called get next view. So now I can say get main view equals V. And I'm just going to make some notes. This is a view. So now I've got a little private function that I can reuse anytime I need. I can get the main view off a drawing, the first view. It's the first view. So I might want to say that up here in notes. Okay, so now I need SWView declared so I can actually use it. So view equals get main view. I don't have any arguments to send in. So now create bomb kind of does everything I want it to do within that one method. Okay, let's just debug in case I was sloppy here. Oh, yep, another one. I got to get the view's configuration name. All right, now I can hard code this. Bad idea. So, okay, let's go to another function. Let's make another private function. Let's say get model config name.
Right.
I like to use get and set in the function names as much as I can, or create. That's just, I just have a preference for that. So when I'm using them other places, I can just start typing in and use IntelliSense to find the things I'm getting. Just personal preference. Okay, get the model config name. What do I need? To get the configuration of a view, I need the view. But I've got it up above here. So, okay, here's a time when I thought maybe I would just pass out the view as a return, but maybe I restructure this and decide, I don't want to pass anything in here. I don't want to hold on to it in different places and push it up. It's going to return a string. So let's restructure this one again. This one, get main view. I'm declaring this as V. We're setting it here, get main view. Let's change this up. I'm going to pull this out of my create bomb. There are a lot of ways you could restructure this. Where is my view actually created and populated? Maybe that's where I want to hold on to that view. So, okay, I'm going to put some stuff up here, but I can't set this outside of a procedure. So I'm going to declare this. And again, I'm just going to call it private. SWView, maybe I would have given it a better name, like first view. That's again where Visual Studio is much easier at like renaming something. You can rename it through the entire project, but not in VBA so easy. That's okay. So I create the drawing, and then here's where I set the view. So why not just grab the view right there? Okay, so when it populates that first drawing view, it's also going to take a moment to grab that first view and hold on to it in the class SWView. Okay, so is everything going to work? My call here to SWView, if I check the definition, yep, it knows it's the globally declared within the class, that private SWView. And now to get the model configuration name, I've got it. SWView dot reference configuration. Now the help documentation is not really clear on this one. It doesn't specifically say, is it getting you a configuration object or is it getting you the name?
Mhm. Mhm.
But its return is declared as a string. If you look at that one little nuance, this does actually return the name of the reference configuration, not a configuration object. Okay, so pretty easy. I just have to say get model, config name.
Whenever you see reference configuration in the API documentation in general, it will always return a string that is also, I think, exists in the component object, right? So reference
Yeah,
configuration that would still return.
yeah, right. So there are a few places you can use this similar method. This is getting it from a view, right? Um, and okay, somebody might be thinking, how do I know that I can get the configuration name like this from the view? It takes a little API help hunting. Okay, sometimes it just takes a bit of that to know that that's the right call. So I'm fast forwarding the fact that I might have done all that research ahead of time. But now all I have to do is say the method name equals
Mhm.
reference configuration. Cool. So I can get the model config name. That's what I need here. I could do two things. I could just call it directly here. I could just replace this with get model config name. But you know what? Sometimes for readability, I would prefer to do this. Just declare this as a variable here locally. Ooh, gotta type straight though. Um, get model configuration name. Just for
Yes.
clarity, I like that so I can then pause here and check the configuration name. You could do it either way though. You could replace this with get model config name if you wanted less code to worry about. Okay, let me just debug just compile. I have another thing I didn't declare. I didn't declare my SW bomb annotation. Insert bomb table 2 is going to return the bomb table. But I got to make sure I declare it as the right type. So here I'm going to go to, let's see if I can see it here. Yeah, here we go. So I just went to the definition and it's pulling it up inside of the object browser, and I can see it returns a bomb table annotation type. So sometimes you can do this without having to jump all the way out to the API help, but either place. But I got to declare this variable as bomb table annotation. All right, so let's do that here as well. SW bomb.
And luckily, we're
Actually,
getting that error
that one is.
message variable not defined because we had option explicit on that. That's a very um, useful best practice to always start your modules and your classes with option explicit so that you let VBA know to do the variable declaration checks.
Yeah, it just forces you to be cleaner with your code, right?
That is true. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, you can be kind of sloppy with VBA, but and just in that conversation, I forgot the type again. It is um,
As state as BOM table annotations, right?
yeah. I'm gonna just copy and paste that from as. There we go. Okay, let's try a quick. Okay, so compile, no error. So I don't have any problems with at least declarations. But does this work? So I kind of started this. We had to do quite a few things here, right? We're grabbing the configuration name, we're getting the main view, we're inserting the bomb table. But back in my test code, it's really simple. I can just say dm dot create bomb. Now, if I'm going straight to create bomb, my code here made some assumptions, or my class made some assumptions. Like here, I'm assuming that the drawing is set when I create the drawing. But if I'm using test code and the drawing's already created, I don't have, if I ran this right now, let's try it. Let's try my code just as is, see what happens. Let's, because what I really want is to connect to this existing drawing, right? So when it hits active doc, its SW model is the drawing in this case, but let's see what happens. Boom. The classic object variable or with block, not set. Where is it getting jammed up? If I hit debug, it's in create bomb. Why? Okay, I'm going to step into this. F8 on the keyboard, really easy step in, step this line by line. Okay, it's trying to get the configuration name, so let's step into that. From the view, okay, well, if I hover over view, I can see right there, object variable or with block not set. It doesn't even know about the view yet because all of this stuff happened earlier in my code. Okay, so I can't just run this test code as is. So how do I make sure I get this running well? Let's do this. Let's come up here, and you have a couple options. First of all, it needs to know about the view and the drawing, right? Where was get model configuration is from the view, right? So I have some options. I could write operations here. Like if you were using a more modern development environment, you would probably, when you created the instances of the class, you would probably pass some things in to pre-assign them when you create it. VBA doesn't work that way. So I could make a routine called like, I'll just show you an example here. I could make public function set drawing and pass in, getting my reminder to save. Delete that. Oh, you know what? I'm going to fast forward because I'm realizing for time, we better get. So I'm going to shift out of this commentary about test code. You would have to do some things to pass in the object, and you just as a quick way to do that, you can make this public. So in my test code, if I want to pass the drawing in, which in this case is actually SW model, because the active document now is the drawing. After I say DM here, I can say DM. Now I've got access to SW draw equals SW model. So I could pass that in so that in my test code, I can jump into tests early. For time, I'm just going to give you that as an example. This isn't complete because I also need something that will grab that first view again. I need to, okay, I'm passing in this. I need to tell it to get the first view. And so I would probably change my get main view. I'd make this public so I can call it from outside. So it doesn't need anything passed in. And then that would not only set the drawing, but it would also get the first view, and then my bomb test would work. I'm almost there.
Yes, I agree.
Let's do it. Very close. Yeah. Boom and DM dot get main view. Now create bomb should work with my existing drawing sheet as is. So now I've got some test code that I should be able to run. And now if I've got my cursor active in this routine called sub test stuff, in fact, I'm going to call it function, not even put a return in here. This just prevents this from running if I play the macro from outside, if it's a function instead of a sub. Subtle detail, but I can still start debugging in this function, just if I'm here and my cursor is active in that function. Okay, it gets the application, the model path, all that stuff's as is. No, notice model path is empty because the drawing's not saved. That's okay though. We're going to push the, what am I not getting? Is model, SW model.
I think set. Yeah.
Stupid VBA set. Okay, got that. It's going to get the main view. So I'm going to use Shift F8 because I'm going to assume that works already. I'm not going to step through it line by line, but create bomb. Let's go in there. Let's see. It's going to get the configuration name. Oh, what does it not have? Oh, it still didn't have the view. Get main view.
I think because we didn't create the view either.
Well, the view's in there. Get first view. Oh, I never actually, this get main view, I never stored that into SW view.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Mm-hmm.
main view. Okay, so let's just add another line here. Set
Mm-hmm.
SW view equals V. So I'm returning it and I'm setting a local variable. I really don't need both, but just for convenience,
Mm-hmm.
that should work. Let's go back up to get main view. So you can drag the active cursor up and rerun this. Get main view. Boom, boom, boom. Now it's going to set SW
Mm-hmm.
view. All right, create bomb. We should be able to get the configuration name. And if I hover
Excellent.
over that,
Mm-hmm.
small, but I can see it's default. Cool. Okay. I've got the configuration name, anchor type, bomb type. No, that should work. Cool.
Wow.
Got it. And so now I've got a little test utility. I could delete this. I could try some different bomb table settings. I could try
Mm-hmm.
different anchor points, and I could just run that because I've got a little test routine that's using my class without having to worry about like, okay, partially running your code or running the entire thing every time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fast forward. I need a few other routines in here, right? So I'm going to ignore my test code now, although I need dm dot create bomb. I know it works. I've already
Mm-hmm.
tested it, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
confident there. To auto balloon, I'm just going to copy and paste some code in for sake of time here. Insert balloons. Let's get this full screen so you can see this. To auto balloon, there's an interface called balloon options, auto balloon options that you get from the drawing itself. What are the default option settings that are coming from this drawing's document properties? And do you want to adjust any of those? So I'm getting the interface auto balloon options, and I'm adjusting the style a little bit. I'm going to make sure it's a square layout, and I want to turn on magnetic lines. There are a bunch of other options you can tweak, but these are the only two I want to make sure are running the way I want. I need to select a view to make
All right.
balloons. So I've got a routine that I'm just going to copy and paste called select first view. This is going to be a private function, but it uses the classic select by ID too. You probably see all the time in your recorded code, making sure I'm getting, well, I pass in the view name, so it selects it. So I'm not selecting it by location, I'm not relying on location here. I'm relying on the view name, and
Which
this
we
is not
always
called
do.
first view, it's called SW view.
WD.
I'm needing my view again.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting the name of that view, and then it's selecting it by name. All right. So I can select the first view. I need to do that for this method. And then the call is pretty easy. From the drawing, you call auto balloon 5, passing in the options interface that you set and adjusted settings to. All right. I've got all this code for you, so I know I went through that kind of quick, but let's do insert balloons. We're good there. And we are on the home stretch. So saving content out. I'm going to add in another module that I use all the time. In a macro, you can import classes and modules. I've got one called utilities that it's got a method created to change the file extension. I can pass in any path, pass in the extension that I want, the new one, and it'll change the extension. This stuff is all in modern, like Visual Studio. There's already stuff to do this, but in VBA, there's not. I see a lot of people using string manipulation left and right. It's a miserable way to do it, if you ask me. But you do need a reference to the Microsoft Scripting Runtime class to be able to do this, the library. So in a project, any macro project, if you add this, you have to go into Tools, References, and this is, oh,
It's
did I
called
already turn it on?
Microsoft.
Uh, it was up towards,
Microsoft Scripting, I think it's called, right?
yeah, Microsoft scripting runtime.
So I think
Um,
they're organized
Nice if there
alphabetically.
was a search in here, huh?
Yeah,
There it
I wish there was a search, man. I wish. That's long
yeah, it'd
gone
make it a
now.
little easier.
Yeah.
But that's, you have to have that so that it can use this file system object. Okay. I don't have time to really cover how that works, but it's the file system object is extremely convenient. So I'm going to say new drawing, oops, path string, and new drawing path is, I can call that change extension method. I need the path that I'm changing. And in this case, I'm going to use the model path and change the extension to SOLIDWORKS drawings, SLDDRW. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing for my Excel file.
Probably the same thing for the
I'm
PDF.
going to call this BOM path. Oops, if I type correctly. So I set the BOM path, and this one is Excel. And then I'm going to paste this, paste the same thing in here to save the drawing. Oh, save the drawing, save the PDF. PDF, call this PDF path. Now I still haven't called the methods. I don't have those yet, but now I've got paths, right? It's the same as the assembly that I started with just different extensions. The drawing, Excel, PDF. Okay. And back here in my drawing maker, I'm going to copy and paste in those save options, and they are really easy. Okay. So to save the drawing, I've got a routine here to get the model doc object. I'm going to paste that in as well. It just, rather than calling this straight from the drawing, I'm going to push a model doc 2 interface of the drawing because that's got the save method in it. So this is probably feels odd to do this, but I want the model doc object type. So my save drawing is just model doc 2 save as. Here again, I'm using an old method. It's the latest, but it's really easy. All you need is a new path. It works for PDFs. It works for saving a part assembly or a drawing with a new name. So it's just a simpler, convenient method. There's save drawing and save BOM.
That one needs to be.
I need the BOM annotation object. And so let's do this really quick where I insert my BOM. Here's create BOM, right? There's my declaration of the BOM annotation. Again, I'm just going to pull that out and put it up here in the class as a private variable so that it's available for other operations. I don't have to try and find it again or pass it back and forth between things because I'm inside of the class. So now it knows about the BOM annotation, and from a BOM annotation, it's easy. Save as Excel. I need a path, and then there are a couple options. Do you want to include hidden objects? Do you want to include images? So I've said, yep, I want images. I don't want hidden objects, and I'm passing in a path. So from my method here, save the drawing is vm.save drawing. And I need the new path, new drawing path. Save the BOM, vm.save BOM. I need the BOM path. Starts to get easy when you've done all your code and tested your code in the class. You just have to reference it. Now here for the PDF, I'm going to call save drawing again, and I can just pass in the PDF path. And if you just want literally just a PDF of everything on the drawing, you're not trying to get a PDF of one sheet, just get the whole drawing, I can just use that save as operation and it's done. I'm going to ignore the closed drawing, but let's give this a test from the top just to make sure everything's working as expected. I'm crossing my fingers. So I was going quick. I hope I didn't mess anything up. But now my main procedure is pretty clean, right? I could add some error checking, but it's just calling my drawing maker to do all these operations. That means I could make another utility for parts and use some of this. I could create views. I could, I wouldn't worry about balloons or bombs, but I could use this for parts and just call some of it. Now I've got a class that I can use, right? Okay, so fire it up from the top. Actually, I'm gonna try a debug first, just so I'm not too embarrassed. There we go. No errors at that level. Okay, that looks
Perfect.
good. We never tested our balloons.
Perfect. I think
Which
it's
I did lots of times before we did this face to face here. Okay, so I saw something going on. There's my
Excellent.
PDF.
Excellent.
PDF looks great. If I look in the folder, here's the little ta-da moment, right?
Yes. Ta-da. Excellent.
Everything
And
else.
everything
There
printed
it is.
perfectly.
That was odd. I've got the PDF, my Excel file. There's the drawing that it
Amen.
saved. And just to check out the Excel file, I added the option to add a preview
Thumbnail.
just for fun.
And I think this is only available in the latest versions of SolidWorks. I think 2024. This was
Oh,
added.
well, let's that's a good point because you can always check that in the API help.
Yeah. I don't think SolidWorks used to be able to allow to save the thumbnails in the
From the
building.
bomb. Oh, that option.
Yeah.
Save as Excel method for the bomb annotation table. It's usually down at the bottom since
2019.
2019.
Yeah, recent-ish. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope none of you are using older than you might be, but I hope not.
For 2019, yes, I agree. I hope everybody's maybe 2 years behind, right? That's fine.
So success, right? Okay, now granted, to develop that in the first place takes a little more time and effort, right? You spend more time searching. I did pump these files into, I've got actually the class and the module saved separately and the completed macro available for you in a GitHub repository. So feel free to grab this. It's public, so you can grab a copy to take a look at the code itself and explore that if you had questions about that. But I know we're a little over time. Any questions from the group while we're
Yeah.
wrapping up?
This was an amazing presentation, Mike. Thank you so much. I think really enjoyed watching you kind of go through the logic. And it's a great hands-on presentation. I'm just looking here at the chat. If anybody has any questions, now is the best time to post those in the chat. I think we are a couple of minutes, 8 minutes over, but I think we could spare maybe 3 or 4 minutes for questions and then a little bit about the next user group meeting. I think we've got a first question coming up here. First time being exposed to this, wow, can't wait to dig deeper and try to implement. Thank you, Mike and Ben. I think David is just complimenting us and how hard it can be to write code live. So
It's a little stressful.
right. Looking for a way to delete rows from a revision table.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So you can get the revision table, and table objects have all of that editing available in the table object. But just for kicks, let's go into the. Okay, there's a revision table feature, right? This is how I would go through. I don't know right off the top of my head what the commands are, but I usually go first once I've found the revision table feature is how do I get to it? Here are the methods, the revision table feature itself. I'm looking for accessors. How do I get there in the first place? Okay, I got to go through the revision table annotation. Here's where some things with tables and annotations, they are multiple layers of referencing. So typically a table annotation, the annotation object type is where you get to text and the display style, where the feature itself you might have to dig in. It might be the annotation object or it might be the feature object. So I didn't see anything in the members
I think all the different types of tables share the same base object. I think it's called table annotation, which
Table
allows you
annotation.
to yeah to be able to read the rows, delete, resize, all that thing. So it's probably table annotation that we should be looking at. And table annotation is an annotation in its own right. So this is what I think Mike was referring to as a kind of a hierarchy of objects. So I think
Yeah.
if we look at the table annotation, we might be able to there you go. And then we look at the members page, we'll probably find some additional details on deleting or adding. We can already see like there's column count, total column
Yeah.
count,
And let me
which
show you here.
allows us
When
to
I
revert.
search the API help and get this kind of stuff, it kind of makes me frustrated because I just wanted that.
Yeah.
But here's what I do. I just tap on the link, and then within this, there's another
Uh-huh.
link to that interface. So, okay, it's a double click through the navigation, but there we go. And here now I can see
Members
where the
page.
members are. And there's lots of stuff in here, right?
Yeah, there's
Row
probably
count,
delete somewhere.
text. There we go.
Yeah.
Delete row two.
And I want to say thank you, Deepak, in the comments. He was able to get the method and he beat us to the punch there. So
Oh,
that's a question answered live. Um,
nice. So
yeah.
here's the back end of that. How do you get to the table annotation for a revision table in the first place? If I go to the interface, I'm going to go to the accessors list and see if I can see a path here to get there. Sometimes that's the hardest part is right. Oh, I find the call. How do I get from where I am to there?
Right. Yeah. Right. Be careful about deleting rows the way that you delete them. Don't go from 0 to n, go backwards. Because the
Mm,
minute that you delete a row, the index changes. So that's a
yeah.
trick I had to learn the hard way. Spent a couple hours, a couple years ago trying to figure out why my code is not working. So whenever you're deleting stuff from a table, go backwards. So from the last row, and then you go backwards so that you don't affect the index there. I think David is saying the same thing that he had to learn that trick the hard way too. Um, Let me see here. I think we still have a couple, 2 more minutes. If anybody had any questions, please post them here in the chat. I think Deepak was saying that the SOLIDWORKS utility library is always checked when starting a macro. I've never found a use case for using this library in general, but sometimes the macro gives me an error when it's not turned on. I think you need that because that's the engine. Oh, the SOLIDWORKS utility. Yes. I don't think I've had a use case for it either as well. Let's see here. Any more questions? Give it 1 more minute, and then we'll just wrap up here. Obviously, we've got the link to the code that we wrote today here. Please feel free to take a screenshot of this, and then go to the GitHub link there. You'll be able to see, I think, Mike, the code as well as the documents, right? The templates and those as well.
I didn't put
Yeah.
any of the templates in. So
But
just if you edit this code, make sure you put in
Mhm.
full paths to your own templates. You're going to see something off my
Right.
local disk, and that's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. I think we'll just wrap up here. I want to extend my thanks here to our great presenter, Mike. Thank you so much for making this happen. This is the first time we've had kind of an interactive type, like live coding user group meeting. So this is awesome, and would love to do more of these in the future. For all the users that are here today, thank you for attending. If you want to see any particular topic in the API, not particular to the drums, for example, or the VBM macro recorder, I think I've covered those in the past many times over. If you want a presentation or about PDM, about e-drawings, if you already have a macro that you think could be useful to share with the community, you want to present that in our next meetings, please feel free to reach out to me over on LinkedIn. Also, you could I'll put my email address here in the chat in case anybody wants to send me an email about presenting. But we'll have this is just the start of the year. We've got many presentations planned for 2026. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Again, Mike, thank you for presenting. This
absolutely. Glad to do it.
All right. We'll end the presentation here, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.